Excessive wrist action causes the ball to go into the net. This often leads players to abandon the rip and revert to a simple drive or push. Alright, let's break down the backhand rip. First, I'll teach you the basics of how to execute a proper backhand rip. Engaging in a backhand ripping rally can be quite challenging. This is because in a ripping rally, we often fail to find the right contact point. Do you feel that? When counter-ripping, avoid a large backswing, learn to use your opponent's power instead. When we are in a ripping rally, we are both borrowing power from each other, not generating it all ourselves. So, if you want to maintain a rally, your rhythm and contact point must be correct. If your backswing is too big, you won't be able to get the rip rally going. After a few shots, you'll lose the timing. The rip must be executed in front of your body. Let me demonstrate with multi-ball what it means to rip by borrowing force. This is borrowing force, and this is actively generating force. Can you see the difference? The reason you can't synchronize with your partner is that your backswing is consistently too large, causing you to miss the contact point. With a big backswing, if the opponent's shot rushes you even slightly, you won't be able to connect properly. Watch our rally. The rhythm is very stable, and my backswing isn't too large. Second point, how much power am I actually using in this counter rip? Only about 30% to 50%. If I were to use 70 to 80% of my power, either he couldn't return it or I wouldn't be ready for the next shot. This kind of high-power ripping rally leads to frequent unforced errors from one side or the other. Even when pros on the national team practice ripping rallies, we hold back, we don't use full power. Even at this pace, the spin on the ball is immense. The focus of this drill is on friction, not raw power. Some players complain about a lack of quality in their shots. This happens because you try to add too much power during practice. The result is either your error, your opponent's error, or a shot your opponent simply can't block. These are common problems. To truly maximize your shot quality, you need to practice with multi-ball training. Trying to produce such high-quality shots in a rally is unstable. You can't add power effectively because you haven't trained it enough. You're not sensitive to power application. In single-ball rallies, focus on consistency, rhythm, and feel. Never use brute force. During multi-ball, however, you must focus on single-shot quality, wider angles, more speed, and more power. Second, let's discuss your position for the rip. Many players stand too close, which is the very reason your shots go into the net. For a simple drive, standing close is fine for blocking or tapping. But once you add friction for a rip, being too close will cause you to hit the net. This is because you get jammed. For a backhand rip, you must create space. Maintain at least a forearm's distance from the table. Ripping from this position is ideal. But most players stand way too close. Being too close or too far is incorrect. You need at least one arm's length to establish the proper framework and positioning for the rip. If you stand too close, the ball will jam you before you can even complete your backswing. Let me address an issue with both backhand drives and rips. Your backswing must be outside the table. This is a common forehand mistake too. Players start their stroke correctly, but then it creeps forward into a pushing motion. The same happens with the backhand, the pace gets faster and faster as the rally goes on. Always start your backswing outside the table's end line. For a forehand drive, you stand closer, about a forearm's distance. But your backswing is still outside the table, with your force directed inward. Then, follow through towards the outside of the table by closing your forearm. This is the standard technique. The same applies to the backhand, direct your force from outside the table to the inside. Generate force from outside in, and then recover back to the starting position. Each recovery must be complete. Otherwise, your tempo will speed up uncontrollably, which is another reason you hit the net. A second reason for hitting the net is brushing the ball too thinly and overusing your wrist. Excessive wrist action causes the ball to go into the net. This often leads players to abandon the rip and revert to a simple drive or push. When your wrist is too loose, the power dissipates at the moment of contact. Why does a flick of the wrist cause the ball to hit the net? In slow motion, you can see it's because the contact is not solid, you fail to grip the ball. You stop the motion instead of ripping through the ball. This will always result in hitting the net. So, the reasons for netting the ball are getting jammed and a weak, non-solid contact from a flicky wrist. A third problem: why do I keep missing the ball entirely? This is because you're brushing too thinly by closing your racket angle too much. When the ball is fast, you'll either miss it or mishit it. This happens from rushing the shot or from an overly closed racket angle. While you need to close your racket, don't overdo it. You must maintain a proper hitting surface. Therefore, you must maintain a consistent racket angle on your backhand rip. Don't let it become too open or too closed. An inconsistent racket angle often leads to hitting the edge of the blade. Another reason for hitting the net is an inward or outward bending of the wrist. This is a very common mistake. The key problem here is that upon the ball's arrival, instead of driving forward through the ball, your wrist action turns into a downward flipping motion. This flip prevents solid contact and sends the ball straight into the net. So, first, ensure your stroke mechanics are stable. Second, maintain your racket angle and drive forward through the ball. You must drive forward into the ball's path, not wait for it to come to you. These incorrect movements result in a non-solid contact and will cause you to hit the net. Now, let's discuss why shots go long, as there are even more reasons for this. The backhand is more sensitive than the forehand. Simply put, at the moment of contact, watch my stroke. As I swing from my left hip to my right, my racket angle is stable. Your stroke, however, has a slight wobble in it. That tiny bit of instability is enough to send the ball long once you apply power. This is the primary reason for most shots going off the table. This isn't just for rips, it's the same reason drives go long. The difference is that your backswing is stable, and your initial contact is stable, but your follow-through is unstable. If I keep my wrist locked and stable, the shot will not be an error. Even if I hit with immense power, it stays on the table because the racket face is stable at impact. Your backswing is stable, but the friction at contact needs to be short, sharp, and focused. There should be no instability, and the power shouldn't be excessive. Too much power and a flicky wrist will cause an error. Your power must be concentrated on friction. Otherwise, even a small flick will send the ball flying. You must be focused. Pure friction should look like this, not even clearing the net. From this base, you drive the forearm forward to generate shot quality. For a backhand drive, your wrist cannot move at all. That's how you generate a powerful, flat, driving shot. So, when you rip the ball, especially during the follow-through after contact, your wrist must remain absolutely stable. The slightest wobble at this stage will cause the ball to go long. At the moment of impact, your wrist must be firm. Use your forearm to drive forward. This applies to the rip as well. Don't flick your wrist as you make contact. Should you grip the paddle tighter? Yes, gripping it firmly helps stabilize your wrist. The same principle applies to looping. The reason your shot goes long is that, in slow motion, your racket face is unstable at contact. After the moment of friction, the position of your wrist is critical. This is why when some players try to loop a backspin ball, the more they try to generate spin, the more unstable their wrist and racket become, which is wrong. The same is true for topspin rallies. And the problem becomes even more pronounced when you add footwork. In summary, while there is some finger and wrist action at the moment of friction, this movement is extremely small. Use a small, sharp motion to grip the ball, and then let the forearm drive forward. Do not use a large wrist motion to hit or flick the ball. The ball is too light, you will definitely hit it long. A second reason your backhand rip goes long is power. I can rip the ball so hard it hits the back wall. Don't believe me? Let me show you. See? It hit the wall. The potential power is enormous. My point is, if I fully unleash my power, I can easily hit the ball way past the end line. So, you need to calibrate your backhand power. On a scale of 0 to 10, you must feel where your limit is. For me, it might be a 6. At 7, it's still good. At 8, I lose control. So, don't push past that 8. Knowing where to cap your power is extremely important. For my backhand rip, 70% power is my absolute maximum for consistency. I can control 70%, but at 80%, the ball will fly off the table. I lose control. Therefore, knowing when to stop your motion is crucial. For amateur players, learning this breaking action is paramount. Many amateur players, on both forehand and especially against backspin, use too much power before they've even created a proper arc, causing the ball to go long. The same principle applies to the backhand rip. I stop my motion at the right point, but many players try to add that extra bit of power. Anyone can generate power. The skill lies in getting the ball on the table after you've generated that power. Table tennis is a sport of finesse. You cannot fully unleash all your power. So, you must figure out your specific contact point and the breaking point of your swing. It's different for everyone. You need to test it. For me, 70% power is my limit for maintaining consistency and avoiding errors. At this power level, I don't miss. So when an opportunity arises, I use that 70% power. That is my limit, and I must control it. It's the same in a match. After your serve, if you get an opportunity, use 70% power. But many players see an opportunity and just go for broke. We all make this mistake. We see a sitter and miss it ourselves. The opportunity is there, all you need to do is get the ball on the table, not hit a winner. You spend half a year perfecting your serve to create an opportunity, and then you miss the follow-up shot by hitting it with all your might. So, you must learn to release power, but also how to control and contain it. How do you do this? At the end of your swing, you stop the motion. This is the breaking action. At the end of your follow-through, don't let the power continue unchecked. You hit the ball and stop. You must be able to stop your motion before you can dare to use real power. Power without control will only lead to shots going long. Third, let's talk about the racket angle. Most shots that go long are caused by an inability to keep your racket angle closed. There's some degree of opening and closing, or closing and opening, of the racket face during the stroke. First, let's look at the drive. Watch my racket angle during the backswing and through contact. It's stable. In slow motion, it's stable. When I speed it up, it becomes a punch, but the racket angle remains perfectly stable. Now for the rip. While you can't keep the angle completely closed, it should generally be more closed than open. Notice how my racket angle is consistently closed during the backswing and at impact. Now, when I accelerate this motion, the quality of the shot emerges, all while maintaining a very stable racket face. Finally, there's the issue of rhythm. Most players don't make solid forward contact on their backhand. Look at this stroke, is it moving forward? This motion is not going forward. Your forearm stops on contact, and only the wrist moves. This is just moving your arm forward from the elbow, not truly driving forward. Driving your forearm forward is what forward motion truly means. This is moving from the elbow. This is driving with the forearm. Ripping and looping are the same, the forearm must drive forward to generate power. Hitting long is an easy fix, just close your racket angle and add more brush. The real problem is never learning to generate power in the first place. I'm not saying to straighten your arm, but there must be a forward punching motion. not just using your fingers and wrist. The forearm punches forward, which allows the rest of the motion to create spin. If you're just flicking your wrist here, it won't work. That power is fake, it's not being properly released. You must release the power forward. Even if I don't use much force but simply drive forward while brushing the ball, it will be a difficult shot for my opponent.